My name is Riley. I run an urban exploration channel that barely pays for gas. I don't make a living from it, but I'm obsessed. Every time I post a video, I get comments saying I make things up or that my evidence is fake. So I came to Skinwalker Ranch. If I could get footage there, no one could laugh at me. I had no permission, no backup plan. I left my car a kilometer back, crawled under a loose panel in the fence, and brought only the basics: flashlight, body cam, and a couple of spare batteries. No crew, no backup. One night only. Go into the old house, check the research trailers, and get out. As I walked, I kept telling myself not to over-dramatize. Another piece of land, another abandoned house. That calmed me down, though I knew this time wasn't the same. The air was too still. It wasn't silence. It was like everything around me was waiting for something. I looked back. The road was gone, only dead fields and fencing. That was the first time I thought, if something happens, no one is going to hear me. My phone died suddenly. 1 second it had a signal, the next it was dead. The camera started flickering with green static like water had gotten in, though it was dry. I kept going. I walked up to a castle gate. The grass ahead was flattened in long lines, crossing over itself like something huge had crawled on its belly several times. I crouched to get a better look. They weren't animal tracks, not tractor marks, nothing recognizable. The air smelled like wet metal, like blood or rusty iron. Behind me, the gate creaked. No wind. I didn't want to look back. I aimed straight for the silhouette of the abandoned house. I didn't feel like going in, but I hadn't crossed all this land just to film grass. The door frame was twisted. As soon as I stepped in, the floor groaned loudly. I waited. 3 knocks sounded further in. Pause. 3 more. Slower. I turned on the flashlight and said, "Testing, 1, 2. I moved down the hallway. At the end, something was standing there, very tall, narrow shoulders, a face that couldn't settle. The features shifted every time I focused on it. Was there someone else here? I should leave immediately. Maybe it was a dangerous person, but something was wrong. I felt dizzy, hypnotized. I couldn't just turn and leave. It was like being in a fever dream. Then it spoke with my father's voice, long dead. "Riley, come here, son. I missed you." I froze. Part of me thought it was a crazy person in disguise. Another that I was losing my mind. I backed away slowly. The thing mirrored every step. When it reached a plank with nails, it avoided it without looking, as if it had walked there before. It lunged forward. I ran and hid in a closet, jamming the door with my boots. The handle turned slowly. My flashlight flickered, and in that moment, a wet handprint appeared on the wood, much higher than anyone could reach. I counted to 5, kicked the door open, and ran. The hallway was empty, except for the handprint still dripping. The research trailers were a few meters away. They looked abandoned, but one had the emergency light on. I forced the hinge and went inside. Inside, a server rack was still running. I approached it. The screens flickered on for a second, showing footage from the cameras on the property. In every frame, glowing eyes stared at me from the dark. A beep came from the speakers and cut out. Then I heard footsteps outside, slow, hugging the wall as if sniffing each stretch before moving. I turned off my flashlight and stayed still, barely breathing. The floor vent at ground level pushed inward. A dark snout nudged the metal, scraping. Then it spoke in my voice, like a badly edited recording. "Don't be afraid, Riley." I pushed a server against the vent, but another part of the wall bent as if something was pushing from the outside. The trailer shook. I went out the other door and saw it on the roof, watching me from above. It slid down silently, stopping 3 steps away. That smile wasn't aimed at me, but at something behind me. I ran between the trailers, screaming until I smashed my leg on a rusty iron spike. I forced myself to stop. Running blindly would get me killed faster than them. I breathed, listened. There were soft steps to the left, the same to the right. Ahead, a still shadow blocked the way. I had two options: stay surrounded or move forward. I went straight. I saw the fence. The panel I had entered through was closed, pressed to the ground from the outside. I knelt and tried to lift it. The metal cut through my gloves. Then I heard a voice behind me. "Wrong door, Riley." I felt the dull thud of something falling behind. Another figure to the right. Another to the left. They closed the circle. I raised the flashlight. 3 deformed faces, mouths too long, teeth worn down. I hit one with the iron bar I'd grabbed from the ground. It stepped back, just to test how much it could take. Another hand grabbed my ankle. I kicked with my other leg and felt it hit a misaligned face. I dragged myself as fast as I could, shoved my leg under the fence. The wire cut my skin. With one last push, I got through, losing a boot. They lined up at the fence, shoulder to shoulder, watching me. They didn't cross. They just followed in parallel like marching in formation. I stood up limping. The air was icy, the metallic smell scraping my throat. From the line, a soft voice called, "Riley, come back. I miss you." I tripped and the flashlight lit the slope of the table. Up there, another line of eyes, motionless, waiting. I turned off the light immediately. I reached the bin where my car was. My hands shook as I turned the key, started the engine, and didn't look in the mirrors. I just drove, leg bleeding, chest pounding like a drum. I didn't stop until dawn at a gas station. I washed the blood and dirt off my hands until the water ran clean. The attendant looked at me and asked what happened. I said I cut a tire with a wire. He replied without thinking, "This place does that to people," and kept going as if nothing happened. I checked the footage. The body cam was just static with my name repeated in a child's voice. The other camera had 3 frames. A hand that wasn't a hand holding a post of the fence. Nothing else. I left with a destroyed leg, 1 missing boot, and 1 certainty. That night, I didn't see a monster imitating people. I saw several. And they didn't let me go because I defeated them. They seemed organized, waiting their turn.
My name is Laura, and together with my husband Mark, we run a small, improvised animal shelter in a small town. Mark always said we were in over our heads, but when the police called about animals they couldn't keep, we never refused. We were not professionals, just 2 people trying to care for the creatures nobody else wanted. Some nights, lying in bed, I wondered if we were doing this to help them or to distract ourselves from the silence of living in a place so empty. Still, it gave us purpose, and for a while, that was enough. Everything stayed predictable until the day an officer called about a family who had disappeared from their home. He said parents, children, and even their livestock were gone, leaving no sign of where they went. Only their dog was still there, pacing the yard when they arrived. The police didn't want it, so they asked if we could take it. When I opened the gate and saw the animal, I expected a wreck. Instead, the dog trotted in calmly, wagging its tail, looking around like it already owned the place. It wasn't scared of the other dogs or the barking. It was too confident. Mark laughed, saying we finally got a genius. But the way it stared at me made me uneasy. In the first week, the new dog seemed almost perfect. It ate, played, and followed the other dogs without aggression or fear. Rescues usually took time to settle, sometimes weeks before they even lifted their tails, but this one behaved as though it had been born in the shelter. It adjusted fast, too fast, and while Mark found it funny, it put me on edge. The first sign of trouble came when one of the small terriers vanished. I searched everywhere in the house, under the porch, even outside the property lines, but there was nothing. No broken fence, no paw prints, not even barking during the night. The animal was simply gone. The next morning, another dog disappeared. This time it was one of our strongest, a shepherd mix that had been with us for months. Again, there was no blood, no signs of an escape, and no trace of a fight. Mark said maybe we had miscounted. Maybe someone came by and took them, but I knew better. The shelter was surrounded by cameras, and none showed intruders. Still, I installed another near the kennel side, where the system had blind spots. That night I sat in front of the monitor, refusing to sleep until I saw what was happening. The night dragged on slowly. The screen flickered with images of dogs pacing, sniffing, or lying in corners. I felt almost foolish staring so intently, as if waiting for a ghost to walk through the feed. Hours passed and nothing changed, until just before dawn when I noticed the new dog leaving its usual spot. It walked toward the far corner, moving stiffly like its joints didn't belong to it. Its body twitched and it shook violently, as though it was fighting something inside itself. The other dogs didn't react, which made the sight even more disturbing. Normally they barked at every unusual movement, but they seemed frozen in acceptance of this. I pressed my face closer to the monitor. I couldn't look away. The fur on its back started peeling off in patches. Not the slow shedding of sickness, but sudden, clumped losses that revealed raw, pale skin. Its chest expanded unnaturally, ribs pressing outward before collapsing back in. Every second its bones seemed to shift, the legs bending outward at wrong angles, cracking as if they didn't care about limits. Then it lifted its head toward the camera. Its face had already stretched, the muzzle flattening, the eyes sliding apart in ways no dog should look. The jaw twitched as if trying to form a word, but instead it snapped shut with a crack of teeth. It crawled deeper into the blind spot, and the feed lost it completely. I sat frozen in front of the screen, feeling like my body wasn't mine anymore. My breathing grew shallow, and I couldn't convince myself to move, even though the house was silent, except for the faint barking outside. Finally, I stumbled toward the bedroom, shaking Mark awake. Mark rubbed his eyes, annoyed, but when I told him what I'd seen, he grew quiet. He wasn't a man who believed easily, but he had lived here long enough to hear the same stories that I did. Without a word, he grabbed a flashlight and went out. I stayed at the monitor, biting my nails, watching him move around the backyard. His light darted back and forth, searching every corner. The minutes stretched so painfully that I thought I'd lose my mind before he returned. When the door finally opened, he looked shaken. He said the dog was gone. No tracks, no body, nothing. It had vanished. I refused to believe him. I ran outside barefoot, ignoring the gravel cutting my skin. The backyard was alive as ever. All the dogs were awake, walking free, enjoying the summer night. The corner where the dog went, it was empty, as my husband said. That was when I understood. The missing dogs hadn't escaped. Something had consumed them, taken them, and now it was wearing their forms. I looked at every animal differently. Their movements seemed rehearsed, their stares too long. For the first time in years, the shelter didn't feel like a place of safety, but like a trap I couldn't leave. I stepped back toward the house, my eyes darting between every dog, when the first growl cut through the night. One of the hounds snapped at the air, hackles raised. Was that the Skinwalker? I tried to run to Mark, but then another dog started barking, then another, until every dog in the yard was barking violently. My heart thumped, but I realized quickly they weren't barking at me. They were barking at my husband. Mark stood in the doorway with the flashlight hanging loosely at his side. His eyes looked wide and his mouth hung open as though he had forgotten how to speak. He told me to come to him quickly, that the dogs were acting strange, that it wasn't safe outside. I shook my head and backed away. My skin prickled with fear as I noticed his movements weren't right. He walked like his joints didn't belong to him. Every step bent at the wrong angle. His voice sounded warped, layered, like it was coming from two mouths at once. Then his skin began to shift. Patches tightened and cracked as though something underneath pressed against it. One shoulder jerked violently out of place, bones sliding with a sound I can never forget. His left eye shifted lower, dragging as if gravity had betrayed it. And then he laughed. A sound that split into several tones, some high, some low. All wrong. Honey, I'm starving. Something inside me feels broken. The words didn't match his tone. They came with a mockery as if he was reciting a joke only he found funny. He took another step forward, ignoring the barking and snapping of the dogs around him. I think our marriage is falling apart. We should sit down and talk, don't you think? Lately, I feel like I'm not myself. The dogs attacked before he reached me. They leapt at his arms, his legs tearing and pulling, their teeth sinking into him as he stumbled. He flung them off with unnatural strength, his limbs bending further, his body breaking more with each motion. Still, he didn't rush me. He stood there grinning with lips that stretched too thin, then turned his head unnaturally sideways. See you in bed, honey. I feel tired now. And then, without warning, he left. He walked into the night, his body twisted and snapping with each step, the flashlight still dangling from his hand until it disappeared in the distance. I stood surrounded by barking dogs until the night began to fade. My legs ached from standing, but I couldn't convince myself to move. Finally, as dawn broke, I stumbled inside. The house was a wreck. Chairs splintered, drawers torn open, walls marked with deep cracks. The back door was half broken off its hinges, swinging in the breeze. It looked like something had smashed through it instead of opening it normally. I slammed it shut, terrified one of the dogs might escape, but mostly afraid of what else might come in. I picked up the phone with trembling hands and called the police. I expected disbelief or mockery, but when I explained what I saw, the line went silent for a long moment. Then the officer said they would send someone immediately. They didn't question me further, which scared me more than if they'd laughed. When they arrived, they listened carefully, never once suggesting I was lying or hysterical. Out here, they grew up with some of the same stories that I heard as a child, the same warnings whispered at night. They told me to stay inside, to lock the doors, to be careful. Their belief gave me no comfort. If anything, it confirmed my worst fear. Even with them there, I felt the weight of silence pressing against the house. Mark was gone, and the thing that wore his face was still out there, waiting for another night. Mark never returned. No body, no tracks, no answers. Sometimes late at night I I swear I hear his laugh outside the kennel, stretched and broken. But I never check. I don't want to see what might be waiting. The shelter continues because I can't abandon the animals, but I no longer see them as I once did. I study every new arrival with suspicion, every bark making me flinch, every wagging tail hiding something darker. My trust in them is gone, replaced with constant watchfulness. The police suggested I move away or close the shelter for good, but I refused. Caring for them is all I know, and leaving would not erase what happened. I know I need to work through my fear. I need to grow, to become stronger. But I'm scared, and I miss my husband.
My name is Claire, and I live with my partner, Daniel. We've been together for 5 years, and we share a quiet life in a small house outside the city. Nothing fancy, just routines and each other. He's not perfect, but he's always been steady. When he left for a work trip last week, I didn't question it. He said it would be quick, only a few days. I kissed him goodbye at the door and thought nothing more of it. The week alone passed without event. I worked from home, cooked simple meals, and even enjoyed the silence. I missed him, of course, but the space wasn't uncomfortable. I trusted that he'd be back when he said he would. This morning, he returned. I should have been relieved, but the moment I opened the door, the world tilted, because the man standing in front of me was Daniel in every detail, yet something in my body screamed he wasn't. He hugged me the second I unlocked the door, but it wasn't the same embrace I knew. His arms were firm, holding me a second too long, and his smell was wrong. Daniel usually carried a mix of soap, sweat, and dust from work. This was different, sharper, like damp earth and iron. I forced myself to smile, but my stomach tightened. I asked about the trip while I tried to calm my nerves. He gave short, clipped answers, his voice just slightly off, like it was being played through a broken speaker. His eyes met mine, but there was no recognition in them, no warmth. It was like he was studying me, not greeting me. When we walked through the house, he moved as if retracing steps, testing every corner, every detail like he had practiced but didn't get it perfect. He put his bag down neatly by the door. Daniel always tossed it on the couch. He opened cabinets and closed them again, looking at the dishes like he was memorizing where things belonged. That was when I felt the first wave of fear. Not because I thought he was lying, but because I thought the man in my house didn't belong to me at all. I sat with him in the living room, but he didn't even bother turning on the TV. He just stared at the blank screen. His breathing was slow, regular, like he was timing it. The silence stretched, and every second made my skin crawl. When I asked if he wanted dinner, he didn't answer right away. He turned his head toward me after a pause, mouth moving seconds after his eyes. The delay was slight, but unmistakable. His lips finally curled into a half smile, and he nodded once. In the kitchen, I cut vegetables, trying to act normal. I heard him behind me before I saw him. When I turned, he was standing in the doorway, perfectly still, watching. I hadn't heard him walk there. I cut my finger from the shock, blood dripping onto the cutting board. I turned on him in anger, but he didn't flinch. His head tilted just a little, like I was a specimen on display. I forced a nervous laugh and told him he scared me. He said nothing. He just sat at the table, eyes never leaving my hands, tracking every movement like he was memorizing how I functioned. The tension didn't fade. During dinner, he chewed in perfect, exaggerated rhythm, each bite slow and mechanical. He didn't look at his plate, only at me. I pushed food around, unable to eat, waiting for him to blink or break the stare. He didn't. His silence pressed harder than any scream could. Then, when I set my fork down, his voice cut the air. "You cut your hand." His tone wasn't concerned. It was observational, flat, like someone announcing the weather. He reached across the table, took my hand, and stared at the blood. His grip was really strong. His fingers trembled slightly, not with care, but with restraint. I pulled my hand back and told him I'd clean it myself. He let go, but his eyes followed the red smear on my skin with unnatural focus. Later, I went to the bathroom. I needed space, even just a locked door. The mirror fogged with steam as I washed the blood off. When I wiped the glass, I thought I saw something move behind me. My body jerked around, but the bathroom was empty. The silence pressed down until I opened the door again. He was already sitting on the bed, waiting, his clothes folded neatly beside him. Daniel never folded clothes. His hands rested perfectly still on his thighs. His eyes tracked me from the moment I entered. I sat on the edge of the bed. His hand brushed mine, colder than it should be. His grip lingered again, stronger, as if reminding me that I wasn't in control. Then the sound came. A clicking, low and sharp, from his throat. His mouth didn't move, his chest didn't move, but the clicking grew faster, more insistent, like a code only he knew. I tried to pull away. "You don't look well. Maybe you should rest." He stopped instantly, turning his head toward me with that stretched smile. The clicking ceased, but the silence that followed was worse. I stood pretending to adjust the seats, but his gaze followed my every move. His body was stiff, his neck jerky, like his bones didn't fit right. I thought if I stared too long, I'd see the seams of what he really was. Then he spoke again. "I'm hungry." The words were dragged out, uneven, like he was testing how to say them. He had just eaten dinner. I told him we could eat tomorrow. His head tilted the other way. It was too far. His tendons were straining like wires. I realized then he wasn't hungry for food. I excused myself, saying I wanted water. My legs carried me fast to the kitchen, but I forced my steps to sound casual. My heart pounded like a drum. I grabbed my phone on the counter and dialed a friend. The call rang once, then cut off, tried again, the same. Footsteps crept behind me, slow, deliberate. I turned. He was there, leaning against the doorframe, his eyes catching the dim light, reflecting unnaturally like animal glass. "What are you doing?" His voice was deeper now, rougher, like something forcing words through a throat not meant for them. I shoved the phone in my pocket and grabbed a glass. "Just water." He stepped closer, dragging each foot like the body wasn't built to move properly. He stood right in front of me. His breath hit my face, but it wasn't warm. It was icy, heavy, like the open door of a freezer. Then he leaned even closer. The sound that left him wasn't words. It was guttural, fractured, broken. It rumbled in his chest and spilled into the space between us. I couldn't respond. I walked past him, nearly brushing his arm. His skin was clammy, rubbery. He didn't stop me. He only turned his head to follow, his jaw twitching like something inside him wanted to break free. When I sat back in my living room, pretending to scroll through my phone, I caught him in the corner of my vision. He wasn't sitting anymore. He was crouched low in the hallway, hands on the floor, staring at me. His body trembled as if trying to decide what shape to hold. I couldn't take it anymore. The silence, the clicking, the way his body jerked like a puppet. Every second felt like I was about to be torn apart. I lied and said I was exhausted, then went to the bedroom, pretending to sleep. My heart slammed in my chest as the mattress dipped when he lay down beside me. His body was stiff, cold, pressed against mine like a weight I couldn't push away. I tried to breathe steady, eyes shut tight. But then I felt his face move closer, the sound starting again. Those clicks, sharp and deliberate, right against my ear. They sped up like he was signaling to something, or counting down. I couldn't hold it. I opened my eyes. He was inches away, staring at me in the dark, pupils blown wide. His jaw twitched, stretching too far, teeth pressing against his lips as if they didn't belong there. His hand gripped my wrist suddenly, bone-crushing, pinning me down. His voice dragged out of his throat, broken and uneven. "Claire, open your eyes. I know you're awake. We need to talk." I ripped free with everything I had, shoving him back and bolted out of the bed. I didn't look behind me. I just ran. His footsteps slammed against the floor as he followed, jerky and heavy, the sound of joints snapping. I sprinted to the bedroom and slammed the door shut, throwing the lock. My chest heaved, sweat pouring down my back as I pressed my weight against it. The silence didn't last. He reached the door a second later, his voice low, coaxing, almost mocking. "Let me in, Claire. Please. I just want..." Talk! The knob rattled. The wood groaned under his weight. His voice came again, broken syllables. They were slow, like someone trying to mimic human pleading but missing the tone. Let me enter. Talk. Talk. The words dissolved into clicks, loud, wet, furious. My entire body shook as his nails scraped against the wood. Long, deliberate strokes at first, then wild, tearing slashes that made splinters rain down onto the tiles. The door shook as his body slammed against it, once, twice, each hit harder, his voice twisting into guttural growls. I backed into the corner, clutching a towel rack like it could save me, staring at the door as if my eyes could keep it from breaking. The sound of him outside was no longer human. His bones cracked and stretched, his breath turned into snarls. He slammed claws against the doorframe, gouging deep scars into it. The bathroom was filled with the echo of him transforming, skin-tearing, bone-snapping, his throat-releasing sounds no human could make. And all the while, between the growls, that broken voice hissed through. This time, it was different. "Is that an animal? Hey! Stop! Don't come any closer! No!" I understood immediately. Those were probably Daniel's last words. His last words before meeting this thing. The monster was not trying to deceive me anymore. It was taunting me. It was provoking me. I covered my ears and bit back a scream. He didn't stop. Not once. The scratching, the pounding, the snarling. It went on for hours. The night stretched like it would never end. I was trapped in that room, counting every second, knowing if the door gave way, I was dead. At some point, the noise stopped. I didn't notice when. It was like I had blacked out with my eyes open, brain shutting down to survive. The silence was worse than the noise. I sat in the corner, stiff and shaking, waiting for the next hit on the door. It never came. When the first rays of sunlight slipped under the crack, I dared to breathe again. My hands trembled as I reached for the lock. Slowly, I pushed the door open. The hallway was empty. The walls were shredded with deep claw marks. The wooden door was scarred, gouged nearly through. But he was gone. I checked every room in the house, step by step, heart in my throat. Nothing. No trace of him. No clothes, no bag, not even the smell. Only the claw marks and the silence left behind. I went outside. The ground around the house was torn apart with tracks, long four-toed impressions, claws dragging through the dirt. They circled the house, leading back into the woods, vanishing with no end in sight. Daniel. No. Whatever that thing was, I never saw it again, and I don't think I ever will.